This is the Inside Data Center podcast. We talk to the people who power the data center sector to give you insider info on everything happening in DC today. Here's your host, Andy Davis.
Welcome to the Inside Data Center podcast. Today I'm joined by Ian Miller, Director at TTSP. Good afternoon, Ian.
Hi, Andy. Great to be speaking to you.
Good to see you again. I was reminiscing earlier about the last time we saw each other, which was in Cannes at
bongo
dinner.
Player involved, I think.
Yeah, I was tempted to bring along a bongo player for the podcast, but I thought that's probably taking it a bit too far. But thanks for coming on. Looking forward to having a conversation with you. Obviously, architectural focus, been in the industry for quite a while, a lot of experience within data centers. So looking forward to just talking about the evolution really of how it's changed from when you started to where we are today and try and use our crystal ball to predict the future. Before we do that, do you want to give a quick introduction of who you are and what your current role is?
Yes, so I am one of the two owners and director of TTSP. We're a 65-odd-year-old architectural practice. Fundamentally commercially, historically, but we sort of organically got into the data center market because we were dealing with huge amounts of trading floors and that sort of thing, and you was dealing with the large comms rooms that supported those and all of the resilience issues that they gave you and the A and the B streams. So it's really when the FSA, I think it was, legislated that people had to start backing up their data, that all of these big banks sort of swept up everything, got all their comms rooms together, stuck it into one big bundle and popped it in places around the M25. And that's really how we sort of moved from commercial architecture, which we still do, into the sort of genesis of the data center world as it became.
Yeah, I normally ask people like how they fell into the industry, because we all fell into it. I think that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
For yourself, wow, quite interesting. How did you get into architecture? You know, what was it that drew you to this industry?
Probably I was set up by my parents. At
As
17.
many are.
Left school, did well in O levels and A levels. Knew I didn't want to carry on studying, so just carried on working in the job I was doing at the time, which happened to be a butcher, which was a Saturday job, hugely related to architecture. Then we had an architect that lived at the bottom of my garden in the adjacent house, who we knew well, and he just said to me one day, "Do you fancy coming in and seeing what I do?" And I enjoyed the creative side. I'd always done art, design and technology, that sort of thing. So I just went up for a day, went around the building sites, listened to what he was doing, got back to his practice, and he said, "Oh, Brian, one of the partners wouldn't mind having a chat with you." And I sat down and had a chat with Brian. He said, "How did you find it?" "Yeah, no, I was really interested, really enjoyed it." He said, "How'd you fancy coming working for us then?" And at 17, that's where I started life doing that. On a drawing board with rotary and pens, for those that can remember them. And then thought, well, you really got to have a qualification in this business. Not going to study architecture, takes too long. So I did 5 years as a construction technologist. Then decided I want to be an architect. So I then did another 8 years. And this was all full-time working. So 1 day a week. So 13 years into my career, I was a qualified architect.
And when you first, stumbled into data centers, like you said earlier, you know, like your organization does commercial architecture as well, but was it any different at that point? As in, when you started working in the sector, did you have to operate differently compared to the other industries, or was it quite an easy transition?
It was an interesting transition. I mean, we as a practice, we'd started doing them for the banks. I hadn't done any, but I just finished a large commercial project with one of the leading MEP companies at the time, and I just got a call from the electrical engineer I was working for, and he said, "We've been asked to do a project, and we need an architect to help us. It's called a remote data backup facility." So I said, "Oh yeah." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, come down and meet me on the site." The site was down near Portsmouth, very well known facility. actually an interesting architectural facility in its own right. So we stood in the car park early one morning, and he said, "You see that building over there?" And he told me how much money went through that building every day in terms of transitions. And he said that doesn't even have generator backup on it. So if that falls over, everything goes. And they've been told they've got to now put a backup facility. He said, we'll go to the site and I'll talk to you about what we've got to do. So we drove out to a site about 2 kilometres away, and we stood in the car park of that site looking at a new small light industrial building. And he said, what we're going to do here, we're going to build some big boxes in the middle. And then down two sides of those boxes, we're going to put air units to blow cold air into the space. And down the other 2 walls, we're going to put power distribution units to power everything that's inside it. It's going to have a really deep raised floor in it, and it's going to be full of computers. And you see that car park over there, we're going to fill that up with generators and chillers. And that was how my first data center was described to me. And reality is, pretty much everything we built since then is based on exactly the same principles. We're still doing big halls, we're cooling down 2 walls, power distribution on another couple of walls broadly, and the chillers and the generators in the car park. So not so far away, but just, massive change. You operate it. I mean, we were building in drywall, whole bunch of things that now you wouldn't do, but the fundamental building blocks, not a million miles away.
The principles are the same. Exactly. It's still trying to achieve the same thing, working the same way to a degree. And as a business, before we go into the kind of data centers, I was thinking of ghosts of past, present, and future. But TTSP as an organisation, so you've changed a lot as well, and you've become more focused onto the data center market. So how have you evolved your organisation into the market, and how have things changed for you?
I think, again, it's been 2 things happened, and all of them fairly organically. It's just been a question of one job leading to another, one client leading to another, projects coming forward. 25 years ago, because it looked like the financial capital might move to Germany, we set up a joint venture office in Frankfurt, TTSP, HWP, who did very little commercial. They were doing commercial then, same as we were. But if you know them, you probably see that they are 100% data center now, probably the leading data center provider in Germany, or data center architects in Germany. 70 odd people, I think they are now. We're just over 30 here and growing steadily. So yeah, it's been up and down, fairly organic though. I mean, it's just as I say, clients having rollouts, clients moving from place to place, bringing new work. A lot of work historically with MEP consultants. So as they were getting clients and bringing people on board and bidding projects, they were all often bid as a consortia. So you found yourself twinning up with MEP consultants, and we worked with most of the major ones over time, and still are. So that's really what drove it, I think, and as the market's grown and grown, and as it's just gone crazy in the last 3 to 4 years, we've grown with it. I think that, and the combination of COVID came in the commercial sector, it's led to one side of the business going crazy, and the other side really finding it hard work. So we're probably about 70%, 80% data center now, grown into that over 25 years of doing it.
Yeah, and doing a good job. Like I was talking about before you go online, do a good job, and you kind of, this industry very much is repeat business. Repeat business is available if you do a good job.
And I think one of the key factors is understanding everything. It's not just about, keeping the rain off and making it look pretty. It's about understanding what goes in it, understanding how it works, and knowing what the other drivers are. I mean, not forgetting at the end of the day, all of us doing this are a service industry. We're serving the larger clients, and it's their drivers. You've got to be able to respond to those, but you've got to be interested, and you've got to understand it, and you've got to be able to put those things together sensibly, and this day and age, incredibly quicker by the project. So
yeah, and I was going to say that as well. Like, obviously, we talked about the past, I suppose, the day when you first moved into the industry, what a data center was like at that point. And I think if you talk about the present, one point I wanted to touch on is the concept of it's just a shed, which frustrates a lot of us when you have these conversations. And I think you've just sort of touched on part of it there about the intricacies of these facilities, but also you must have seen the exterior change as well, because as we've become more public, people don't want these buildings to be hidden away anymore.
There's a bit of both in it. I mean, there are still, and you know, go to West London. There are still large parts of West London where a simple shed and the right kit in the right places works very well and works very economically. So if you're a major colo or if you're a hyperscaler, that works for you because you're spending least on the bit that doesn't concern you and getting most bang for your buck. So getting as much white space as you can. What is changing, and we're you know, we've got 4 facilities, I think, going through various stages of design and construction within probably a 2 to 3 kilometre radius in London. Fundamentally Docklands. But when you're dealing with buildings which are up to 100 metres high, and some of them up to 100-metre footprints in an urban environment, some of them adjacent to listed buildings, most of them, within an environment that's got residential on it, it's got hotels nearby. All of those constraints, as well as the planning issues, the environmental issues, the architecture does take the lead. And it comes back to that discussion about knowing what goes into them. So as the architecture works, you've got to work the architecture around what a data center needs, but you've got to be able to respond to urban context. The quality of the design is key. It's a big driver when you're sitting in front of a design review panel and a bunch of planners in a pre-app or the GLA. All of those drivers that add to actually what an operator wants, which is as much white space for as little outlay as possible.
And how's legacy data centers impacted as well? Because again, we're seeing a lot, because of the lack of power, and obviously there's a lot more upgrading, retrofitting, etc. Is that impacting how you design a data center?
I think legacy, they're always going to be a challenge. And it depends where they are. And it depends, and I don't think the industry as a whole has really got its head around how you're going to deal with those. When I think back, 2012, I was working on what I was told was the largest data center fit out in Europe at the time, all 6 megabit. And you think, how long before that becomes a legacy data center? And smaller facilities than that, and facilities where you fundamentally can't get more space for cooling, which is what's going to be the driver. You can get, yes, power is the biggest issue for all of us, getting power, but it's all right to stick loads of power in a building, but you've still got to get rid of what that drives, which is more heat. And if you haven't got roof space and you haven't got the capacity to get more chillers in or get rid of that heat in some shape or form, that really becomes a challenge. You can go as dense as you like, but the building footprint, and it'd be interesting to see that ultimately how that pans out, whether there are systems as we change densities and as the cooling systems have to change because of that, whether doing things like taking heat off and reusing it, if these places are in connected enough environments, allows you to strip back the cooling, whether more resilient power streams allow you to strip out generators to give you more space for cooling, for example, all of those things. And whether I think fundamentally some of these, what were legacy centers, just become edge centers, and define the edge. We've done edge from cabinets to 100 meg facilities. So
I had that exact conversation on end of last week. I said I went through a period on the podcast of asking people what the edge was. What does it mean to you? And you get a different answer every time.
From every person.
I agree. Like edge is edge. It's still there. It's still a huge market, but what it is has changed fundamentally from the early days of the conversations around edge.
Well, I mean, it starts from onboard computers, doesn't it? Which
Exactly.
is what's going to.
Track it all the way back.
Yeah, yeah.
And you touched on it there. This brings us on a bit to the future as well, but like scale, because one thing again that you hear outside is just like building bigger, 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 bigger.
Yeah.
But how actually achievable is that sometimes? Because you
I
need
just-
to consider everything within it.
Yeah, well, bigger, bigger, bigger. You can do, providing you got the land, providing you got the power, providing you can get the cooling. Densities are going up. That's something that nobody's not convinced about that. So actually, the white space is coming down. Because within a given site, and certainly if you're working in an urban environment where you've got roof space constraints, there's only so much space you can get rid of that heat. But you know, we're all working those issues. It just feels to me, I think, you know, nobody's got any interest in doing anything other than working as efficiently, making a facility work as efficiently as it can. But the arms race of bigger and bigger and more powerful chips, simply by making them more powerful, needing more power, you know, you've got to think long term, how sustainable can that be? And I really don't think, you know, while we do what we do, I don't think it's going to be until we see a real step change in how compute is derived, you know, getting significantly more compute for the amount of power that you put in. You know, I've seen articles, I can't remember the figures, but it was like step changes of 100 times or 1,000 times more compute for the same kilowatt. Now, if you can do that, then that really will make a difference. But at the moment, we're in the territory of we need more and more processing. We need quicker and quicker processing. It has just become an arms race.
Yeah, and you touched on cooling as well. I was speaking to somebody yesterday who's much more intelligent than I am around cooling, and he was saying like there isn't actually a solution out there. Like everyone's talking about straight to chip cooling, but there isn't a solution yet. You know, people are trying to identify it, and will that come in? And it's all impacted in the design, isn't it? So, how do you design for the future when you don't really know what the future is?
Yeah, or you're gonna, you know, you'll have designed a facility which you'll find only 50% of the white space is occupied, because that's all the rest of the building can support. That's all the power you can get to. I mean, if you were at data center, we talked earlier, we were at Data Cloud together this year, and I can't remember who it was, but there was a 1 meg rack on display. You know, so how many 1 meg racks do you need in a building to use up 100 meg? Well, that's an easy equation.
You can do that maths.
Yeah.
And finally, on the sort of design side, we touched on timeframes as well earlier. Again, it's the demand is faster, faster, faster. Like how achievable is that, and how have you had to adapt in order to achieve these timeframes?
Employ more people is one thing, but you know, it's just keeping, I suppose, being systematic about what you do. You know, some of it isn't rocket science. Being able to, you know, for us, being able to take the metrics that we're given. Somebody gives us a site or asks us to look at a site. They give you, you know, providing you can agree the density you're operating at, providing you can agree the PUE that you're going to apply, it's a linear equation to work out how much white space you need. You know, we have the facility, you know, we have the building blocks to apply generators to that at 3 meg, say, or chillers at 2 meg, and look at what that means. So we can very, very quickly test fit a site, and it's that sort of underpins what somebody might do about a piece of land. You know, and we all know how incredibly valuable these pieces of land are and how incredibly secretive that whole business is. So being able to do that quickly and test fit various options and feed into, you know, what are the pros and cons of that site are sort of, you know, key at that early stage. It's then, you know, depending on what route it goes, there's a lot of people in the market now who weren't in the market historically, because of the investment returns on it. So you're looking at sites that, you know, they're going to go to outline. They need a viable site. They need parameters, and then they're going to put it to market. Or you're looking at sites for colos or hyperscalers who will just take the site, take it forward, and that different things apply differently. So, but one of the I think one of the key things you see now is that you don't go anywhere near a planning route until you've got a planning consultant on board. That everybody works hand in hand with those guys now, as well as the regular suspects, the MEP guys and structural engineers. But when you've got barristers looking at what you're doing, it's interesting times.
Yeah, as the capital increases, there's
Yeah.
more eyes on, isn't there? And I think that's the reality of it. We're seeing it across the industry, even in talent. Like, I have so many conversations now with investors because they're investing so much capital. They want to ensure that they're recruiting the best people, but also, whether that's salary information or market intelligence or what's the market saying sometimes is really important to them because it's so much money.
Well, and for a number of them now, they're new investors in this market, or the amount they're investing has gone up significantly from what it was. So yeah, it just becomes more focused.
Definitely. Good snapshot on the architectural side. Before I let you get on with your evening, a couple more questions around the industry. We've touched on quite a few challenges already, but 2024, I'll have to change the question soon, which always seems crazy. We're at the end of August as we record this, but we've got 4 months left. Any big challenges you think the industry is facing right now?
I just think it's the ongoing challenge of the increase in densities that we're all seeing and where that's going to lead in the future. For a site I plan this week at one density, if nothing happens on it for a month, I'll be asked to redo it at another density. Most of the, you see a number of the hyperscalers, they've got a basis of design. It's easy. It's a playbook. We're going to give it to you. Oh, hold on a second. We're just going to pause that project because we're redesigning our basis of design. Guess what? The density is going up. And ultimately that changed to the cooling systems as they all develop and it's a little bit like the VHS Betamax. What is suitable for what? Is it rear door cooling? Is it directed chip? Is it immersion? How's it all going to pan out?
We need that crystal ball.
But one thing you can be certain of, it will change, and it will change quickly.
But that's what we love, isn't it? I always say that. we joke about
still for a little while sometimes, but
yeah, it would. But equally, I think most people in the industry that you talk to, they actually enjoy that aspect of being a little bit uncomfortable and having to adapt and be agile. And I think the people that do well tend to have a lot of those traits.
Having to think.
Yeah, definitely. We definitely have to think.
Yeah.
Couple of final questions. If you could ask everyone in the sector to start or stop doing one thing, what would it be? I
just think the resolution of this whole arms race on power and density and it's an inevitable consequence of the growth and the amount of processing that's needed, but somewhere amongst this there must be a better way. I think the other thing I'd really like to see is a little bit, we've all got ESG targets, everybody has them. And I think there's a lot of mileage to be had in engaging in the S as much as the E. When we're dealing with a project, if people have got a playbook for their social issues, that's not great. You really need to if you can't make a difference to the people in the 10 roads around your site, then you're not dealing with the S properly. Some of the sites, some of the locations I'm looking at, and you think, I can look at that site and I can look at the surrounding area and think, by engaging properly, you can change a lot of people's lives. You can get them engaged in the industry. You can give them, give them local opportunities, not just in the industry, but just in things you can do in the locality, which will make a big difference. All of those sorts of things. And it'd be great to see, a little bit more hard work being done at that real grassroots local level. Yeah,
definitely. And you see the ones that do it well as well. You do. Yeah. It's so clear when somebody does that well because it's not done enough.
Yeah.
Final question. If you could give one piece of advice to anyone looking to work in the sector, what would it be?
I just think be open, be engaged, be interested. It's an incredibly broad sector. If you're interested in it, there'll be something there for you, and it will change over time, and you'll change, and you'll evolve, and be open, accept help from other people, and help other people along the way. We're all in the same boat. Everybody is going to struggle at some point. Everybody's going to need a little bit of assistance. I think really to sort of round it up, and I was just reflecting on this before we came on, but there was a little outtake, I think, that was circulating, and it was a little snapshot of, I think it was Barack Obama, and he was just talking about people that are important to him, and and then describes them as people that just learn how to get stuff done. And if you look that up, that little, it's only about a 2-minute outtake on, and you can get it via LinkedIn. The way he talks, and you can absolutely understand why people like that are valuable and why they'd be great in this industry.
We'll dig that out and we'll put it in the show notes when we release it. But I'm a big believer, again, when you look at this industry, you have to get stuff done because it moves so fast.
Yeah.
You haven't always got time to plan and project and forecast. It's an instantaneous industry. Sometimes you have to have done it yesterday. That's the reality of it. You have to have done it that fast, and you do need to have that ability. So no, it's a really good point, and I think we'll dig out that, put it in the show notes so everyone can take a listen or a watch.
Cool. Yeah. Learn to think sideways.
Exactly, yeah. Predict the future and all that stuff that we can't do. But thanks for your time. Great to connect. Where can people connect with you if they want to learn more, either about your business or just have a conversation?
Well, through LinkedIn, it's a good forum. Or direct to the website. I don't know what you can post via that, but I'm happy for my contact details to go up. No
we'll put their website in the show notes so people can find. If they need to reach out directly, obviously come to me, or you like you say, be able to find anyone on LinkedIn these days.
Always happy to talk.
Thanks for your time. Great to connect. Next time
Andy.
I see you, we're definitely bringing a bongo player wherever we are, whatever it might be. If you know, you know. And we'll catch up again soon.
Cool. Great to talk.